Hello and welcome to our podcast, Together on a Journey of Hope. We today are doing our neighborhood episode. I'm Vincent Riley, Managing Director of Faith, Family, and Discipleship. And of course with me I have Bishop Kulick and Kate Parkinson. And we are taking you with us through the neighborhood of Trastevere. So we began our day on the Isle of Trastevere, right in the middle of the Tiber where Rome was founded. Bishop, the first church we went to was St. Bartholomew's. What was your experience of seeing the relics and the altars of the 20th century martyrs?
Oh, it was phenomenal. As you know, when you're in that church, the side altars are just filled with a variety of different relics representing the different martyrs of the different times and eras of the modern century. And it was wonderful, particularly to see the one altar is dedicated to the martyrs of communism and one to the martyrs of Nazism.
Also in the Church of the New Martyrs, we notice the fact that the Pope has given it to be a place for instruction of young adults. What's the importance of doing catechesis in the church building itself?
Well, I think first of all, it really goes back to the heart of the idea of what we saw the other day in the catacombs, that the church's roots is very much in the domestic church. And so doing catechesis in the midst of the church is really doing it at home, at the heart of our spiritual home. But then also, I think both symbolically and pragmatically for us as Catholics, our sacramental life occurs in the community of faith through the celebration of the Eucharist and all of the sacraments. So it reminds us that all catechesis flows from and flows to the Eucharist and the sacramental life of the church.
That's also what we heard from our regional director, Danielle Cribbs, about her experience at St. Bartholomew.
Hi, my name is Danielle Cribbs. I am the Director for Faith Formation and Discipleship in Indiana County and Seward. The most impactful encounter that I have had thus far in this trip is yesterday during our visit to the churches of St. Bartholomew and St. Mary of the Garden. Their use of side chapels for not only devotion but catechesis is incredibly inspiring. As a formation leader who works with children and those progressing through Christian initiation, it offers a new avenue for sharing our devotional life in a catechetical manner that also directs us back to the liturgy, not only from a content perspective, but the physical proximity that those side altars offer to the main altar in the nave of the church.
But then we headed to St. Cecilia's church. And St. Cecilia, of course, was an early Christian martyr that gave a heroic witness of her faith. So Kate, can you share with us what it was like to see that sculpture of St. Cecilia in martyrdom?
It was really a blessed experience because Saint Cecilia, in her death, actually, the way she died, the way her body fell, actually witnessed to her belief in Christ. She actually fell with her fingers in a sign of blessing, pointing to the divinity and the humanity of Christ and the entire Trinity. And she basically professed the creed with the way her body fell at her martyrdom. And they have that encased in marble there as this sign to everyone of how beautiful that gift of her life was through that martyrdom.
One of our regional directors, Teresa Mazer, also talked about the experience at St. Cecilia's.
Hi, I'm Teresa Mazer. I'm the Regional Director of Faith Formation for the Southern Fayette region. My experience in the pilgrimage so far has helped me to reflect on the Jubilee year of hope, because walking the lives of the saints helped us to understand the hope that they had in giving of their lives. A few examples is the story about Saint Cecilia, and just watching how they described how she had died, and even in her death she still professed her faith in her fingers and showing that there's still three in one. And another one was really cool and impactful was at St. Clement when they were talking about the commissioning of St. Cyril and Methodius, which is one of the parishes that I serve. So that really caught my interest and was exciting to learn how I could take that back to the churches and inspire the families and the community of St. Cyril and Methodius.
Then we journeyed for Mass at Santa Sabina. Bishop, would you share with us what it was like to celebrate Mass at the church of one of your particular patrons and friends, Cardinal Tomko?
Sure. Well, for many, many years, Cardinal Tomko, a great friend of mine who passed away just a couple of years ago, and at the time was the oldest cardinal in the Curia. He was 98 years old. He had been the protector and the custodian as a cardinal of St. Sabina's Church for many, many decades. As a matter of fact, as we learned yesterday, and many people may know in the station churches, that the first station church that begins the Lenten season is Sancta Sabina. And it is there that Ash Wednesday Mass is celebrated. And for several papacies, ashes are imposed upon the Holy Father at that church for him to begin his Lenten journey with all of the people around the world. And Cardinal Tomko had the privilege of imposing ashes on Pope St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict, and Pope Francis. And so to be able to offer Mass, which I offered for his intention, in the church which was under his custody was really something special.
So Santa Sabina is also the home of the Dominican order. What was it like to be in the place where St. Dominic lived and prayed?
Again, as we've discussed before on the blog, but it's so true. Every day you see this, every experience you see it. You're here in the present, but you're also experiencing the richness of the past, the legacy of the church. And so, of course, St. Dominic, who tradition tells us gave us the rosary, the Dominican order, which has been the custodians, almost unbroken, for centuries of that church, really show the rich history of the Dominican order. But also, I really got a powerful feeling when I thought about this, about stewardship. And we see that in so many of the churches, how these religious communities are really stewards or custodians of the church's patrimony and its history and its legacy. And I just kept thinking about how all of us are called through our baptism to be good stewards of what we have received and what we give and do.
So we moved from St. Dominic to St. Benedict, and Kate was able to share a reflection on the life of St. Benedict and Scholastica at San Anselmo, the head church of the Benedictines.
Yeah, that was a real blessing as someone who attended St. Vincent College and St. Vincent Seminary in Latrobe. It was a true joy to be where the heart of the Benedictine community is based, and to be able to talk about the life of St. Benedict and his impact on Western monasticism and also Western culture in general, and how his rule has truly influenced the entire world, especially in Western Pennsylvania, where so many of the Benedictines staff parishes in the Diocese of Greensburg, and their charisms of, hospitality, of work, of prayer, have really been a major influence on many of our lives.
Another one of our St. Vincent alumni, Katie Talinsky, talked about that experience as well.
Hi, I'm Katie Talinsky, and I'm the Regional Faith Formation Director for the parishes of Northern Armstrong County. In the past few days, which have been tremendous, what a better place to understand the Pilgrim Church. So we have the church militant, those pilgrims here on earth, so us here in Rome and everyone around the world. Then we have the church suffering, those souls in purgatory who need our prayers. And then we think about the church triumphant. And yesterday it was so apparent to me in Mass that here we are in such a sacred space, what an honor to be able to have Mass there. And there were so many holy men and women who were buried in that church. And it made me really think about the communion of saints. And so during Mass, it was a very powerful and impactful moment for me, as I remembered each of you in my prayer, all of those who have died, and all of us here who are just journeying to heaven. And it made me think about the goal of heaven and how we're all supposed to help each other get there.
In walking through the Trastevere neighborhood, we walked in the footsteps of so many saints. Tim Rufflin, our regional director from New Kensington and Lower Borough, talked about that experience both as a married man and as a person in ministry.
Hi, I'm Tim Rufflin, and I'm the Regional Director of Faith Formation for the communities in New Kensington and Lower Borough. There was a moment during our day yesterday as we were exploring the Mother Church of the Dominicans and the Mother Church of the Benedictines. And as I was reflecting on these two experiences, I was caused to think, okay, well, how does this Dominican spirituality or how does this Benedictine spirituality need to be incorporated into my own life and ministry? And so looking at the Benedictines and their vow of stability that they take, well, I think as a young married man, I have that vow of stability with my family. But also working for the Diocese of Greensburg, that stability that exists here within Greensburg and in a particular way within the parishes of New Kensington and Lower Borough, as my ministry is rooted in those particular places. But at the same time with the Dominicans and that call to go out and to share the good news, that there is that aspect of my ministry as well, to go out to the people of these parishes, to go out to the people of the Diocese of Greensburg, but even to go out to the people of my family as well, that there's that evangelical call to go out and to share the gospel, to proclaim the good news. And so looking at these different religious communities and how they did that in a very concrete, particular way, I think there was a big takeaway for me of, okay, well, how can I incorporate these spiritualities and these ways of living the faith into my own life and ministry as well?
We're so delighted that you're able to join us here at our diocesan website for our daily blogs. And we want to remind all of you that we're continuing to pray for all of the intentions that we're receiving here in all of the places we're celebrating Mass, praying devotions, and just walking in the footsteps, as we've heard today, of the saints and the martyrs. And so I want to just encourage you again, please continue to send your petitions to us here at the Diocese of Greensburg, along with any questions you might have, and we'll be happy to try to answer them as we together, you and I, all of us, continue our journey of hope.